With pleasure, I got to know that the book which Mrs. Zolina succeeded in publishing in Malta on the relations within a European context between Russia and Malta, dating back to the days of the Knights of Malta, is going to be translated also by UNESCO in Russian. This is a wonderful book. This is a book which saw the collaboration of Maltese intellectuals, of Russian intellectuals, politicians from both sides of the countries, and yet produce a book which shows how even in years gone by, between Malta and Russia, there were always very good relations.
A part of the premises of the palace was especially converted into a Russian Orthodox chapel, where Her Imperial Highness could pray and worship in the faith she had been brought up in.
Today, this part of the palace is still called the Russian Chapel. It is a venue of cultural and artistic functions organized under the distinguished patronage of the President of Malta.
Following the tradition started 11 years ago, the President of Malta hosts the celebration of the Orthodox Christmas, organized by the Russian Center for Science and Culture in Malta.
Every year, the Orthodox Christmas, a group of Russian musicians comes to Malta to give a special performance to the guests of the President of Malta.
On several occasions, even Maltese musicians and singers presented secular repertoire in Russian.
In 1996 to 97, the Russian chapel was restored with the help of the Rosarubesh Center of the Russian Federation and its Director General, Valentina Tereshkova.
Princess Natalia Putyatina was one of the Russian refugees who found her home in Malta. She was born into an aristocratic family and related to the Tsar.
During her childhood, she took ballet lessons from Tamara Karsavina, a leading Russian ballet dancer.
After the Russian Revolution, her family came to Malta with an intention of moving further on to England. But a most romantic love story blossomed in Natalia's marriage to a Maltese gentleman, Edgar Tabone, and she remained in Malta for the rest of her life. In the 1920s, Princess Putyatina introduced Russian classical ballet to Malta. Several generations of Maltese children were taught ballet at her ballet academy, and through ballet they came closer to Russian culture and Russian history. Princess Putyatina staged Russian classical ballets and organized concerts. The school is still very popular today. The building, especially commissioned by the princess for her dance academy, still bears the Russian name Otrada, which is the Russian word for joy. Nikolai Krasnov was another Russian emigrant of the beginning of the 20th century who left his mark in Malta with wonderful watercolors that can now be found in many private collections. At the age of 24, this talented architect was appointed the chief architect of the city of Odessa. Very soon, he became one of the most reputable architects in Russia, and the emperor commissioned to him several of his palaces. The last project of Nikolai Krasnov before the Russian Revolution was the Livadia Palace in the Crimea. In 1945, the Yalta Conference of the Big Three Allied leaders was held there. It was at the Livadia Palace that Stalin, Churchill and Roosevelt discussed Europe's post-war settlement. It is of interest to mention that after the conference, the leaders of Great Britain and the United States of America then went on to Malta. The work in the Maltese archives has brought to light a very interesting document that reflects the great regard and appreciation that the Maltese people and the island's British administration had for the Russian war effort. It deals with the organization of a ceremony to salute the Russian war dead.
This was the result of an order, presumably issued in London, to hold parades throughout the British Empire to honor the Russians' war dead.
21st February 1943, 5 parades in 5 cities of Malta were held. On the eve of the day, the Germans surrendered at Stalingrad. As soon as the news reached the Allies, the rejoicing must have been unbounded. After the sufferings and the horrors of the previous years, the victory was a clear sign that the tide of aggression was finally turning.
The parades in Malta were really impressive. The principal one was held in Valletta. It consisted of detachments from the Royal Navy, the Royal Army, the Civil Police, the Home Guard and the Royal Malta Artillery. A large number of civilians and servicemen lined the sides of the square. Translation into the Maltese language of the Russian poet Alexander Pushkin was done by one of the most renowned poets of Malta, Achille Mitzi.
Il-funtana ta' Bakisaraj, hija nixxija tal-imħabba, hija funtana tal-ħolm. Żewġ wardiet ġibtlek bħala rigal. It-paċpiċ tiegħek qatt ma jeda u d-dmuħ tiegħek poetiku joġobni.
The stage of the Russian Centre is often the venue for concerts given by Maltese opera and music institutions. It is also the venue for public seminars and discussions. The Russian language school is very popular among the Maltese. Art exhibitions of Russian and Maltese artists are shown at the Russian Centre premises on a regular basis. Russian films are shown during international film festivals held in Malta. Russian ballet is a frequent visitor to the islands, and invariably the theatre house is full. Today, the traditions of Russian education and culture are maintained at the Russian Boarding School of Malta, or RBSM, the largest of the Russian academic schools that operate outside Russia. It was established on this friendly and hospitable island 12 years ago. It has become a home for children from about 15 European countries and America who come to Malta to pursue the curriculum of a regular Russian secondary and high school and to perfect their English language skills. The school was recently visited by Leonard Orban, the European Commissioner for Multilingualism, who was impressed by the high standard of foreign language teaching and the students' achievements. Eleanor Mitrofanova, permanent representative of the Russian Federation in UNESCO, has paid a visit to RBSM to study the potential of teaching the Russian educational curriculum outside Russia. RBSM gives its students the possibility to involve themselves in numerous sporting and artistic activities. This school is a unique example of intercultural collaboration. The RBSM dance group has received recognition internationally. As a school that represents Malta, it has already won 2 prestigious European dance festivals in Barcelona and San Remo and brought 2 trophies back to Malta.
We are in San Anton Gardens, the palace of the President of Malta.
Now the San Anton Gardens are open to the public and they contain a variety of flowers and trees from all over the world. And some of those trees are over 300 years old.
As old as the story we are recounting.
At the very entrance to the gardens, you can see a gift from the ambassador of Russian Federation, Valentin Vlasov, to the President of Malta.
This clock is neither electronic nor mechanical. It is guided from space by satellite. It is sophisticated and modern as the relations between our 2 countries, Malta and Russia.